Hello, friends. Welcome to the today's session. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you all joining. So today we will be speaking we are having a panel discussion on volunteerism in the 21st century, the way to go. Next, please. This is a part of the community working group. The panel discussion is a part of community working group, which is a group dedicated to the support and engagement of community groups and contributors, aiming to leverage OpenStreetMap data and tools for positive social, humanitarian development impact. So if you are interested in joining us, you can get more information at the following link. Next. Next, please. So the webinar will some rules which we are some rules which I will be telling you. The webinar will be live streamed via YouTube and will be recorded. Please abide with the hot code of conduct. Be welcome, be welcoming, be respectful, be careful in your word phrasing and tone. When we disagree, try to understand why. Next, please. So we'll have 1 hour panel discussions. The participants may ask questions via chat. Then we will go into the breakout rooms and everyone can talk via voice. So if you want to share in social media, please use the hashtag volunteerism. Next, please. So let me introduce you to our speakers today. We have Laura Mega, Juan Arellano, and Sabrina Zito. Pardon me if I pronounce it wrongly. So for our first speaker is Sabrina Zito. Sabrina is an expert in using geospatial data to address environmental and sustainable development challenges. Her passion lies in helping organizations use GIS and Earth observation data to fulfill their missions. She is also the co-founder of Women in Geospatial Plus. Our next speaker is Juan Arellano. Juan is a translation and social media expert, experience at localization community management for NGOs, volunteer lead, community building. He is also part of the Hot Open Mapping Hub Latin America team, former contributor to Global Voices, The Engine Room, and Periodismo Ciudadano. So welcome all of you. We have Laura Mega. Laura is geospatial engineer working at the intersection of open tech, open data and development. She works at the Kenyan social enterprise to support teams to adopt data for good. Laura is also a Youth Mappers regional ambassador, where she supports chapters in East and Central Africa. In her free time, she volunteers with local open data communities. So welcome all, and the floor is open, and let us have some discussion around some wonderful questions. So my first question will be, how can I fit volunteering into already a busy schedule? So Sabrina, please allow your thoughts to pour on this.
Thank you, Lakshmi. So the question about how to fit volunteerism into a busy schedule, I think a lot of us care about different causes and different things are important to us. And I think volunteerism is a way to engage with those topics. So the first question is, what is something that really you care strongly about and you want to do something for? And when you can find this passion that really interests you, that is a good start. Next, think about how much time or how you can best help. Because some of you may be at different stages of your life where you have caregiving responsibilities or you have limited time. So it could be something very small, from say volunteering to, tweet for a local NGO like maybe 5 minutes a day, just updating their Twitter page, or 10 minutes a week, whatever time you have that you can dedicate, think about how much time that is and find a way that you can really serve this group that you care about. So that will be one advice I have. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Sabrina. Yes, it is indeed very difficult. Juan, please, may I have your thoughts on this?
Thank you. The question is, how can I fit volunteering into an already busy schedule? I would say that with an example, for example, they say that the people in love always find time for the couple. So it is therefore basic that the task in which we want to volunteer excites us, that it has priority in our life plan. In this way, it will be easier for us to prioritize it among the rest of our daily activities. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. May I ask Laura, please share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Sabrina and Juan have shared. So I think what I can just add is, I think it's important to integrate your volunteering activities into your existing routine, so that you're not adding more things into what you already have. And one easy way to do this is to align, the kind or types of volunteering that you want to engage in, to make that to align with your interests and hobbies. Because as you all know, volunteering is something that you're doing on the side with no pay. So you're committing your time and energy into these activities. So for example, as Sabrina was sharing, if maybe it's putting in a few minutes or maybe an hour a week to draft up some social media plans or do some tweets, then maybe your hobbies and interests are in social media. So if maybe you enjoy, I think most of us do enjoy scrolling on one of these apps, if it's Twitter or Instagram. So why not maybe do that on a corporate or an organizational account where you can sort of retweet things that are important to that community. It can be in the arts, it can be, so basically try to find volunteering activities that do align with your hobbies and interests and things that you already do on the side. Yeah, I would say that for now.
Yes, wonderfully put into words. So following this again, I will ask, is volunteerism a privilege? Do you feel that it is a privilege? Laura?
Yeah, I think I would say volunteering is a privilege, unfortunately. So because obviously development across the world is not equal, unfortunately, maybe some regions, some countries, even within countries, maybe some areas are a bit back, and even as individuals, we are not always on the same page. So at times it's impossible for others to sort of commit their time to activities where they're not receiving, say, payment in return. So say, for example, that people might have interests in volunteering and support causes that they care for, but maybe they have to work 2 jobs or multiple jobs, so they have limited time and energy to support volunteering efforts. So I would say because of that, it is a privilege, unfortunately, to be a volunteer. Another thing would also be, for example, within the OpenStreetMap community, where we do a lot of online volunteering. Not everyone might have the resources, so things like laptops, phones, internet access to be able to volunteer the way others are. Yeah, so for those reasons, I would say it's definitely a privilege.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Sabrina, please share what your insights about this.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And yeah, I want to also echo what Laura said. There are many times in life or different phases of life also when you as a person, as an individual, may or may not have the resources to actually commit either financial or time resources to volunteering. However, I think there are lots of ways, if we broaden how we think about volunteering, that people are contributing to communities even if they themselves don't have many resources. So I know probably some of you in the room are involved in some religious groups, perhaps. I think those are also very big sources where volunteering and community support happens, where people say help out after a service to give out a meal or cook, or for example, help other people get in. And so there are different ways and different places where there's a lot of, I think, charitable intention and good intention, and people give what they can. And so it's also thinking about ourselves and understanding that if we can't commit to a very big time investment or financial contribution, it's okay. We do what we can in the time we have, and maybe not now, but maybe in the future, there will be that opportunity. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Thank you, Sabrina. Juan, may I have your thoughts on this? Is volunteerism a privilege?
Thank you. I would say yes and no. One would tend to think that only people who enjoy a comfortable economic position can volunteer, and that is true in most of the cases. But in my experience, I have seen poor people volunteer, not for a large company or an NGO, but for their own communities, participating in health brigades, for example, food safety committees, managing common funds to improve neighborhood safety. I think that is also volunteering, and it's very valuable for them and for the people around them. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So what I feel is, I mean, adding to all your points after listening to you all, is that it does need some resources to put in some of your resources, and one should be capable enough to be to handle that volunteerism. So in line with this, how do you feel the difference between offline and online volunteerism? For the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of online activities. I think more online activities had taken place rather than offline. So what is the difference you feel? May I hand over to Sabrina?
Thank you, Lakshmi. So personally speaking, I volunteer both online and offline. Of course, during the pandemic, the offline, like in-person volunteering was reduced. But I find that there are some similarities in terms of getting to interact with people socially as a benefit. So as you volunteer, you're working with other people, you get to know them, and you develop relationships. And during the pandemic, that was really important for me personally by volunteering with the Women Plus in Geospatial Network. That really helped me through. But then also in person, of course, you see people, it's a different kind of interaction, and you also get to know people in a different way. So that's one big difference. Online, I was working with a lot of people from different countries, and so we had to adjust our time zones and find meeting times that worked for everybody, and also work more asynchronously, where people would do things at different times, but we would stay in touch and have to communicate a lot more to get the projects continuing to keep going. Whereas in-person volunteering, you're in the same place, you're in the same time zone, and it may or may not be a bit easier to coordinate with time. And also, you can do more social activities in person, which you can't really do online. So I think this year, as the pandemic has come under more control with more vaccinations and more conferences have happened in person, it has also been really nice to see people that I only knew online for the past few years in person at these conferences. So that's also always a big plus. Yeah, those are my thoughts on the differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Laura, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think Sabrina has covered it on how the two differ, but I think also volunteer more online versus in person. I think also this changed a lot after the pandemic. So, but I think one thing that online volunteering gives is the flexibility. So, especially from a volunteer point of view, so you can get to choose the times where you are able to commit to contribute to a certain activity, as opposed to in-person volunteering activities, which mostly usually require you to be in, say, in a place at a certain time at a specific place. But for online volunteering, you can be anywhere in the world doing a wide range of activities. So I think for me, the main difference is the flexibility and also the kinds of activities that you can get to work on. So another thing is also, I think for in-person activities, it's a bit limited, I would say, because you tend to see that it's very theme specific. But for online volunteering, you get to see a wide range of options that you can jump on into. I think also with that provision, then you get a chance to also learn more and try out different kinds of things. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, indeed, flexibility is a key issue, and especially with girls and women, I guess. And so how do you feel about this, Juan?
Well, at risk of repeat what has previously been said, I would say that the main difference lies in the time flexibility. In-person volunteering is subject to schedules. In online volunteering, you collaborate when you can or feel like doing it. Another difference for me is that for online volunteering, it is more than likely that certain digital skills are required, such as the use of certain programs or platforms or having a good and stable internet connection. In person volunteering, you may not have these requirements. In my personal experience, I have mostly volunteered in remote form, digital form. So I have very little experience volunteering in person.
Thank you, Juan. I think our the advancement in technology has helped us to overcome the pandemic period. And I think that is a boon to the online volunteerism. Yes, Sabrina, please.
Thanks, Lakshmi. I wanted to also follow up on what Juan said, because in addition to the barrier of having a stable internet connection for online volunteering, I think another barrier for in-person volunteering sometimes is the transport costs. Because if you need to go somewhere and you don't have a car, you need to find a bus schedule, make sure it gets there on time, you get there on time. So this happened to me also early on in life when I was traveling mainly by public transport. So that can also be a big barrier when the bus schedule doesn't meet the right time for you to get home or go somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. So following up and another question, like how has volunteerism helped in developing your skills, and were they beneficial to your career development? May I ask Laura to speak on this?
Yeah, so a lot of times I think volunteering traditionally has been seen maybe to not help one to develop their technical skills, because mostly when we maybe would work with an NGO or a charity, within our community. You would then maybe get to grow your soft skills, which are very useful. But I think with like where we are at in terms of modern volunteerism, and even with, I think most of us here in the geospatial field or within the data and technology fields, nowadays you get a chance to sort of practice your experience and your technical skills through volunteering. So say, for example, if you are passionate about things to do with open data and get a chance to work and learn more about the OpenStreetMap platform, then you get to grow your technical skills while giving back and supporting important initiatives. So in terms of career development, I'd say getting the space to actually learn and practice. And these are things that could be useful in non-volunteer work, either if it's through your main work that maybe you might be doing at the same time, or maybe in future. I think it's all, you usually get a lot of transferable skills. It might not be directly, say for example, if you're an OpenStreetMap contributor that you, maybe for your job, you get to do the same, but probably you get a chance to learn about data generation, data accessibility, and such things that you can transfer and sort of grow your career. Then the other thing that I would mention would be networking. So through volunteering initiatives and communities, you get to really meet a lot of people who can be useful to your career in one way or the other. So either if it's through mentorship or if it's through sort of career sponsorship and coaching, which I think are also new things that are coming up in addition to mentorship. So you might get to meet and network important people who could be useful to your career in one way or the other.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, we meet wonderful people. So, Juan, may I have your thoughts on this?
Sure. If you volunteer in a subject directly related to your career, there are like two important benefits. The first is obviously that you will learn more about the subject or put in practice knowledge that until now you had not been able to apply. The second benefit is connecting with a group of new people who work in the same field as you, with all the possibilities that this entails. But you can also volunteer in something not directly related to your professional line, but something that you like or that you have certain knowledge about. And that can help you to turn around your work development if you later see it as convenient. That would be like a second career line, something like that. As for the skills to learn, it depends a lot on what field you are heading to or focusing on. But in general terms, I would say that you learn to interact with different types of people, with different work styles, and probably from a different cultural background than your own. In other words, you gain multicultural skills and the ability to adapt. Another important skill that is acquired is the management of one's own time, to be proactive and self-motivated, and above all, disciplined. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Yes, wonderfully said, like self-discipline and how to manage your time, which I think the youth of today should understand more and practice more in their lives. So, Sabrina, may I have your thoughts on this?
Sure. I think Laura and Juan said things very well. And I would also like to add to what they said in terms of building your own confidence. I think volunteering gives you the opportunity to try new things, things that maybe you've never done before. And it gives you also a safe space to learn and also get advice from other people, especially if you have other people you're working with who have more experience than you. And it's a great place to do things for the first time. Maybe it's your first time speaking at an event to introduce something that's happening, or it's your first time creating a graphic for a website, or if you work with something more hands-on, maybe it's your first time learning how to design a garden or planting something. So there are different things and skills you can develop and build confidence because you've done them over some time through your volunteering experience that you can then bring into your own career in the future. And it also gives you the confidence to learn new things and be okay with making mistakes. So that's, again, a very helpful skill to have, or mindset to have as we progress in our different careers. So I think that's the main thing I would like to add to what Juan and Laura said.
Thank you, Sabrina. Then, what impact has volunteerism in your life? Will you add on to this, Sabrina?
Sure. So I think because I've moved to different places throughout my life, I've had to make new friends very quickly in new communities. And I think volunteerism has definitely been a big part of that, helping me to find my place in the new community that I'm living in, and also to get to know and understand the people in the community better where I was now living. So that's one big plus in terms of how it's impacted my relationships and understanding of my surroundings. And like I mentioned before, it also helped me through the pandemic a lot because I was previously in a job where I had a lot of social interaction with students every day. But then when the pandemic came, it was all shut down and I was working online mostly. So having this network through Women Plus in Geospatial was very helpful. And then thirdly, on a professional level, I started also volunteering by creating these online meetups for Earth Engine users. And people just got together and shared what they were doing. And over time, this was recognized. And I was recently invited to join or apply for the Google Developer Experts Program for Earth Engine. And that has helped me professionally because it's been a recognition of my contributions to the user community. So you can have definitely also positive career outcomes or support coming out from what you do just out of your own interest and out of your own free time. So I would like to encourage people to think about, what is it that you're interested in, and what are groups that you would like to get to know better in terms of other civic or social organizations where you live or online. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Congratulations that you are a Google expert. Laura, may I have your thoughts on the question? How has it impacted your life?
Yeah, for me, I think the main impact has been being able to craft a career in the impact space. Because coming from an engineering background, I think initially I wasn't for working in the corporate space or doing a lot of structural, precise engineering in the field. But through volunteerism while in university, I got to learn about, there's something called the development and impact sector that actually uses technical skills. I don't think without volunteerism, I would have been able to learn about such things and that you could actually use science or technology in that space. So having sort of to get that alignment, to know that this is something that I can focus in terms of career and focus on building my skills in that space has been great. I'd say that that's like the main impact that I've seen. But also I think similar to Sabrina, getting to sort of explore some new things that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. So things like speaking and presenting, I mainly through my job, I think those are things that I was not necessarily doing on a regular basis, but through volunteerism, because it came with a lot of teaching and sharing, getting that confidence to actually explore these things and actually enjoy doing them. As then last thing would also be closely related to what I've just shared, would be also networking and building community. Also being a very quiet and shy person, and actually being able to learn about creating networks and talking to people and building community. Also, these are all things that I've been able to do through volunteerism, and connecting with people locally and also around the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. You have listed so many benefits of volunteerism. What are your feelings about this, Juan?
My feelings, well, this would be a very personal answer from my side, because in a direct or indirectly way, my last 3 jobs have come from volunteering, and this backs to 2006, I think. Well, volunteering also has allowed me to meet amazing people and fantastic organizations in this way. It also has made me travel to various different parts of the world. But overall, I have learned a lot, and I have developed abilities that I thought were denied to me. So I think that undoubtedly volunteering has had a great impact on my life. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wonderful to hear that it has benefited you a lot. So what is your motivation in volunteering, or how would you encourage others to come up for volunteering? Sabrina, may I have your thoughts on this?
Sure. So I would say that volunteering, even though it might sound very altruistic, like, you know, you're doing something to help somebody or help some group or do something useful or helpful, actually, there are a lot of benefits for ourselves too. So I would say it's actually what you put in, you actually get back in terms of, say, just joy and satisfaction from when you see something that you contributed to or a project you were working on happen or take off, or you see the impact of what you do, you see somebody smile, you see the positive impact of the effort you put in. So I think those moments are very special and powerful, because you then feel, again, as a person valued in this volunteering group. And I would encourage everybody to really think about what they can offer in terms of their time, their skills, what they're really interested in. Maybe it's not something you've done before, but you want to learn to do, and find opportunities to do that in a way that fits in with your life at the moment. So that would be how I would encourage someone.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, the joy, I think, is the gift that comes back from volunteering. So share your thoughts on this, Laura.
Yeah, for me, I think my motivation is that there are so many challenges that we do face in the world, so many problems that do exist. And I think most of the time we tend to bystand and sort of leave it up for maybe organizations, governments, let's just say established institutions. But I think through community efforts and volunteerism, I think there's something that someone can do, all of us can do, however small it may be. I think there's so much that we can do through volunteerism to solve a challenge, or even to kickstart the problem solving of a certain issue that people are facing. So for me, my motivation is actually just trying to think about how we can create better lives within our localities, in whichever small way or whichever big way that exists. And I think if a lot of us think like this, I think we'll be able to start seeing a lot of movement in terms of creating better lives and making things better for us and generations to come. Yeah, so I'd say that's my main motivation for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. There is a saying in our Hindi language that every drop, makes the ocean. So every effort counts, and every effort, I think, makes mountains move or complete a big task. So may I know your insights on this, Juan?
Of course. For me, my main motivation is to learn something new, and then put my knowledge and skills at the service of a cause in which I believe. As to why encourage others to do it, well, I think if it worked for me, I'm sure it will work for someone else. The experiences may be different, but just as valuable. And as previously said, also the joy of participating in some project to meet new people is also motivating. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. So joy and happiness is one thing which comes back to us for our hard work in volunteerism. So how does volunteerism fit into your this thing, especially in these times when people have less space for other activities? So how would you encourage others, or how would you ask others to to fix that in this in their timetable? May I know your thoughts on this, Sabrina?
Thank you, Lakshmi. So I would suggest again thinking about what is really important for you as a person, like what are some things you really care about, and what are some things you're good at doing, and what are some things you want to learn. And then also keeping an eye out for opportunities around you. Sometimes there are formal opportunities where, say, some organization posts a call for volunteers, and you can read through the call for volunteers and find something or a project or a role that will fit one of these things, what you're interested in, what you want to learn, or what you're already good at. Sometimes it's informal. Sometimes you have to make your own opportunity. And that means looking out for what are the needs in some groups in your community or in places where you already are. So maybe it's your school or your workplace. What are some areas that you can plug into to make things better for your community or the people around you? So that's some ways I would recommend getting started.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, people should list out their own this thing, what they want to learn and what benefit they want to gain, and at the same time contributing what they have learned to others. I think that would be the best option and best suggestion. May I have your thoughts on this, Laura?
I think it's in line with also what Sabrina had shared, and I think what you had shared earlier. So first, I think is to know or just maybe look into what your interests are in. If it's for personal reasons, so maybe if you just want to give back or support a worthy cause, or if it's for maybe career development, or probably maybe you have some more time from your job, or maybe you are on a break, you're looking for the next thing and you're looking for activities to do. So I think your first thing is to know your why, and then you'll find so many activities that align with those. Because if it's for career, then it's important to look for maybe communities or spaces that would provide for activities that you can jump on while enabling you to grow your skills, or maybe connect you to important people or networks that could be useful in that sense. So yeah, very important to know your why, and then for the what, I think there's so many options. And I think also, just to amplify also something that Sabrina was saying, it's not always that you are supporting things that are existing. At times you might find your why, but there's actually no community or no one who's working on it. So maybe that can also mean putting in your time to actually build something, and actually then going in together with other volunteers, or actually looking for people to work on building this new initiative or product or anything with for the community. Yeah. So for me, I'd say, just finding the why, and then for the opportunities, I think there's so many platforms out there that you can access this. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Just putting the why from you, I can summarize that. May I know your thoughts on this, Juan?
Well, I have previously said something about this, but I would like to add that it is important to get out of your own bubble, get to know different realities. This is very important in terms of making us aware that the world is very diverse, that even in our own cities, there are things that we don't know about, interesting projects that we can support. So this is a real way to make people think that volunteering is something valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. You all have been connected with some groups or organizations where you have volunteered. So what are the challenges you face when running a community full of volunteerism? So Sabrina, you have been associated with Women in Geospatial Plus, and you have a lot of experience. So kindly share your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Lakshmi. So I think because a lot of my volunteering with Women Plus in Geospatial has been online and also been throughout the pandemic times, I can see that the pandemic was really a big, in a way, double-edged sword for a lot of people, because in the beginning, when all the in-person activities were closing down, people all went online and they were really enthusiastic to do online events and volunteer online and do things online. But after a while, when people started also having a lot of demands on their life from caregiving, from work, from just being very, mentally or physically tired out by the pandemic, and also health issues from the pandemic, there was a drop in enthusiasm over time, because people have been online so long. They don't want to be on a video call, another video call at the end of their day. So that definitely was a big challenge for us in motivating the continued enthusiasm from the volunteers over time. And I think what we can do is, as people who are maybe managing projects, be understanding that people are entering a different phase in their life, and we can try to shape the volunteering effort so that it fits better with what they can do. And if they can't continue to commit, it's okay. We thank them and appreciate their time, and we have to then find new people who are interested in working together. So I think being very understanding and open to the people you work with, and respectful as well, is very important. And then also adapting your activities to fit with what can best support the community you're serving. So there was also, as the pandemic came down more under control, in many parts of the world, there was more and more demand for in-person meetups and in-person gatherings. And so right now, this is what we are also trying to do more on a local level, where people can meet for in a city together, or who live in the same place, or continue to meet online if that is what they also feel more comfortable with. So being more adaptive is also very important. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Yes. Thank you, Sabrina. So enthusiasm and motivation went ups and downs during the time period. Yes, please share your thoughts on this, Juan.
we're talking about the challenges, right?
Yeah.
Well, in my personal experience, the first challenge I had was to find volunteers. And believe me, it wasn't easy. When the organization I was working in that moment asked me to look for volunteer translators, I didn't know where to go, where to find them. The organization was known as an alternative news and journalistic article site, but not as a translation site. But I was lucky enough that a friend agreed to interview me for the newspaper where he worked. And the same day the article was published, requests from translators to volunteer began to arrive to my email account. Over time, we had more than 500 active translators and a hardcore of 30 translators who collaborated every week. Another challenge, and this is very important, was learning to value all the collaborations made, since some of these translations, for example, could have many errors and needed to invest more time in correct these errors. But for the persons who did the translations, it was very, very important. They were worth a lot in terms of learning opportunities for them. So my personal lesson from this was that not only see the benefit for the organization, but the benefit for the people who is collaborating. It can be in ways you don't really imagine. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Joan. It was a wonderful insight shared by you. May I have your thoughts on this, Laura?
Yeah, for me, I think I would say a challenge that I've faced with managing volunteers is being able to standardize work. So because of the, I'd say, time and energy commitment issues, it's a bit difficult to plan for things long term. So say, even for a good example would be for meetings, it's a bit difficult to have maybe like a regular meeting at a certain time, maybe as compared maybe to what we do maybe for normal work, where we a lot of things are standardized, and if it's 8, it's 8, if it's on this date, so this day. So that without standardization, then it becomes a little bit difficult in terms of just making sure things flow easily and nicely when implementing tasks. So, and also because a lot of the volunteer work that I've been involved in is very long-term, it's also very difficult to sort of be sure of the commitment of different people, or even if it's people who are there for the long term, some of the things that they're able to engage in. So that makes it also a bit difficult to know, to plan in terms of when it comes to timelines, how soon things might end, how soon things might start. So yeah, for me, I'd say the main issue or challenge has been standardizing work within this process. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. So we are inching towards the end, but one last question before I take up questions from the participants. So how would you sum up in managing volunteerism in one sentence or few words? May I ask you, Sabrina, to follow this?
In a few words, I would sum up, I would use the sentence building a team, or a phrase building a team as how I would sum this up, because everyone in the team feels connected. At the same time, we have a common goal, but we also have different roles in the team for different things that we will do together. So that's how I would sum up the what it means to be managing volunteers.
Thank you. May I have your words on this, Joan?
Sure. I think the number one tip for this would be patience. You will find people of all kinds and all levels, from those who know better than you what to do, and that is people you really should learn from, to people who have to be taught from scratch. You will find very kind people and very irascible people, orderly people and chaotic people. I think three more things that you should not forget are clarity. You may be able to talk to volunteers with a lot of clarity, be very clear on what you say. Motivation, you have to motivate them permanently, always motivate your volunteers. And thankfulness, you have to be giving thanks to everybody for even the most of the little collaboration. I think that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderfully said. You know, gratitude is very important. May I have your thoughts on this, Laura?
Yeah, so for me, in a few words, I'd say understand your volunteers. So know them, know what they'd like to get out of it. And then be empathetic. So try to understand the situations. Obviously, understanding that volunteer work is being done on the side, or even if it's the main activity to a person, maybe there are other responsibilities that they might have. Then lastly, I would say recognize efforts, which I think is similar to what Juan was saying on being grateful. So always recognize efforts that people are putting in for the tiny tasks that they're doing. Sending a quick thank you note, if it's maybe a social media post, if possible, that you can do to celebrate their work, to share and amplify their work. That would be great as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you all, dear panelists. So there are some questions from the participants. There's one question from Arneli. Which one do you prefer better, volunteering or managing and organizing volunteers? Who would like to take this question? Which one do you prefer better, volunteering or managing or organizing volunteers? So it is the other side. Either you are volunteering or you want to manage the group of volunteers. So may I have your thoughts on this, Sabrina?
Sure. So this is quite a difficult question to answer because they are both quite like I enjoy them both. And also, honestly, if you are managing a team of volunteers, you end up also doing whatever is also needed for that project to happen. So in a way, you're also volunteering. So it's hard to separate the two for me. But I think if you take volunteering to be more of a individual process or individual task versus managing a team where you have to then actively communicate and collaborate with many people, and also maybe beyond your team, an external group of partners or external group of people, then I would say the skills that are needed are quite different, and they bring each their own challenges. So I would say at this point in time, maybe, yeah, actually, I don't know. I like them both, so I will just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yes, I guess it differs from person to person. So Laura, do you have any preference? Which side you want to be?
Yeah, I think it's on the same way that Sabrina has shared. I think I prefer both in maybe equal measure. But I guess because of maybe some more volunteering experience, I would then, at the moment, I would offer to provide more of management and organizing. Yeah, but honestly, both. I would go both ways. It's hard to choose one. Yeah.
So what is your opinion, Juan?
Well, a difficult decision. Sorry. I had the luck to be on both sides. So when you are a volunteer, you learn what you wanted to learn. You put in practice your knowledge. But when you have to manage volunteers, if you haven't previously done this, you start to learn a lot. So that's what I think it's very valuable and very rewarding to manage a group of volunteers. And I had the luck also to be able to volunteer and manage a group of volunteers at the same time. So I had not to choose. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I had 3 different perspectives for the same question. And it's wonderful to know each one's experience. So there's another question from Jeffrey. Is it okay to pay volunteers to cater for things like internet, lunch, transport? This, I think, is $1 million question. So over to you, Laura. Is it okay to pay volunteers to cater for things like internet, lunch, transport, etc.?
Yeah, so I would say it's okay to cater for costs that are related to the volunteering activity. So say, for example, it's a full day in-person activity that requires one to move from their homes to a different location, and they're there for the full day. So obviously people would require some sort of meal. So I think it's okay to cater for costs related to volunteering. I wouldn't call it paying volunteers, but I'd say minimizing the, let me just say, operational costs that are related to volunteering activities, especially because at times we tend to have very diverse groups of people when it comes to volunteering. So you want to make sure at least everyone is able to contribute without necessarily maybe it being a burden on them financially. So that's what I would say.
So what do you think about it, Sabrina?
I definitely agree with Laura. I think if people have barriers to volunteering, I think helping out to cover these costs would really reduce the barriers for some people. And also, it also enables them to have access to more tools or resources. Sometimes if you're volunteering online and you need access to some, say, subscription like Canva to make some graphics, or a Zoom subscription to host meetings or host a webinar, we can't often expect the volunteers to pay for this themselves, especially if they're using it for the organization's work. So I think as an organization, raising funds to be able to support these things is very important. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. In this way, I think we should be self-reliant or self-independent or sustainability. All those factors come into play. Kindly say a word or two, Juan.
Well, I agree with what Sabrina and Laura have said. For me, it's okay to pay volunteers, but there are some organizations that don't have the resources to pay its volunteers. I think they can do something like little rewards in the form of, for example, like to give a prize for the volunteer that has collaborated the most, or the one that has more time collaborating, or the most the best collaboration in the last year, for example. It can be imaginative ways to reward the volunteers we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. In the chat, Ralph has said that rather than pay, which infers employment, I would prefer to hear compensate, which means they are still volunteers. Yes, there are many ways for compensation. Like for many places, I get a free ticket for a conference or some session. So that also is in a way, many things are coming up, as and when and how it suits the particular organization, whatever it's there in their capacity, they will definitely do. So there are many questions coming up in the chat. So this one is for you, I think, Laura. I have an engineering background as well, and I have challenge with career direction. I would appreciate or insight on that. How do you source and choose the right volunteership?
Yeah. So to answer that, I would say when starting out, especially at the same you're starting out, I think it can be difficult to know where to go first, which sector to even focus on. So for me, I usually say that you need to discover. So it's either through research, you can research on what's available and know which areas you have interest in. It doesn't have to be what we maybe say called passions or something that you are passionate about, but it's okay to be in that discovery stage where you're exploring different options. And volunteerism will really be key in this stage, because you're able to maybe test out different environments, different sectors, and trying to see how they work out for you. Because in as much as maybe you might have different interests, it's a bit difficult maybe to get employment in all those, or it might take a longer time. So say, for example, you can have maybe a job or an internship in one space and then volunteer in another space to test that out. And also, if you're in the geomatics field, I think at the moment there are so many ways in which you can explore this. For example, if you're interested in geomatics and surveying, I think there's something called Volunteer Community Surveyors Program by FIG. Then if you're maybe interested in the more of GIS side, you can look into people like Map Action, Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team who are here and are hosting this, just to learn on how mapping is being used in different spaces. So I would say just discover, so research and see what's out there, and then explore some of these spaces through volunteerism. But then last thing I would say, don't overcommit. So make sure maybe to choose maybe one or two at a time and just test out and explore something fully. Then I think at the end of it, you will make a decision, or at least you'll have had enough experiences to lead you to making a decision. I hope that answers you.
Thank you, Laura. This is for the participants. We will not be joining any breakout rooms. So kindly, whatever questions you have, please put it in the chat box. So I'll be taking up all the questions in the chat box till time allows. So next question to all the panelists. At times, people have different understanding of volunteering in that they qualify time and would not consider volunteering as an option, even if it is aligned to their purpose on this planet. Have you experienced this? If so, how did you handle it? May I read the question again? At times, people have different understanding of volunteering in that they qualify time and would not consider volunteering as an option, even if it is aligned to their purpose on this planet. Have you ever experienced this? If so, how did you handle it? May I ask Juan to put some words?
Well, I think it depends on the subject we want to volunteer. For example, in my experience with volunteer translators, many times people send me an email saying that they wanted to collaborate, but they were not sure about the time they have. So my answer was, just join us, get to know the group, how we work, and collaborate when you can. We have a lot of articles to be translated, so you can choose a very short article of about 300 words, and you can collaborate with that once in a week, once in a month. In that way, you still be collaborating and won't have a very time-consuming task. And many people agreed with that and collaborated in that basis. So I think that would be a solution. For example, in mapping, you can collaborate mapping with the time you really have. You can map as little as one edit for a day, a week. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. There is another question: how to know the citizens' interest in boosting volunteer activity to reach a specific goal? May I know your thoughts on this, Sabrina? I'll repeat the question: how to know the citizens' interest in boosting volunteer activity to reach a specific goal?
So from what I understand, Zaina, please correct me if I misunderstood your question. It's about trying to understand public interest from your community or your country, maybe, on how to get more people to volunteer. Is this the understanding what are the topics people care about? Is this the question you have? Okay, I see a response. Yes, okay. So this is not so easy to understand, like what are things that people care about. But I think one way you can kind of get a sense of it is in some countries where people are able to donate money, what are the big causes that people are donating money towards? So that gives you a sense of what are some of the big topics that people care about in your country, and also the number of organizations that are set up for a particular cause or topic can also give you a sense of what people are really interested in or care about. So for example, you can compare, say, organizations that are focused on social or environmental causes, or even like other kinds of civic causes. So maybe emergency response groups, as an example. So that's generally how I would try to understand what people care about in a country.
Thank you, Sabrina. Hope, Zainab, your question has been answered. If you still have any doubts, you can reach out to Sabrina. So there's a question from Daniel. How can one get people to volunteer for a project? And I think another question, how can you support a team of volunteers if you don't have fund or resource? So may I know your thoughts on this, Laura?
Okay, so I think one way that you can get people to volunteer for a project is, especially now that we have a lot of things happening digitally, so make use of online resources. So make sure maybe you publish somewhere. It can be a blog, it can be something, a resource that people can get information about your volunteering activity, and then leverage communities and networks that already exist. So say, for example, in the mapping community, if you have a mapping project where you need people to volunteer, maybe you need to set it up within the HOTSM tasking manager, where we already have volunteers coming in every day to contribute to different random projects. But you also have communities, regional and local communities, where you can post about the opportunity, and maybe you can create something like a sign-up sheet where people can sign up to show their interest. And you would be shocked at the amount of response that you would get. Sometimes it's very, you get so many people interested that you actually have to do a selection. So I would say leveraging online resources to promote what you're trying to work on, and then leveraging community for you to get people. And even in cases where maybe there are no maybe established communities, maybe for a certain area of interest, you can just go on with social media. I think it's also a good place to get people who are interested, or even get people who might not be interested and teach them on how they can get started. And then last one on how you can support a team if you don't have resources and funds, I'd say looking to see if there are any granting opportunities. I think nowadays there are also like a lot of micro grants that are going around. I saw something by the ESA Hub this week on where even individuals can apply to get granting support for an activity. But it's not always about grants. I know in as much as they're becoming more popular, they're very, very limited, and only few people get to be selected. I think one of the ways that we've been doing it locally is actually collaborating with established organizations and companies. So a lot of companies usually have like some sort of funds that they've set aside to support initiatives that are either aligned with the company's mission. So you can look into organizations and companies that you can collaborate with to either fund some resources or maybe provide space or pay for internet and such things. Even I've seen cases where people have even partnered with a transport company to provide transport to move volunteers from one place to the other. So yeah, I'd say establishing partnerships and applying for micro grants if those are available. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Talking about OSM only, there are two more questions which I would like to put before you, Laura. Could you tell us the most attractive thing which may tempt volunteers to keep going, particularly in OSM community, and how can we say an organization have a good volunteer management system? So this is from OSM Ethiopia. A question to Laura.
Okay, I don't know if it's the case for everyone, but I think for
first one is for OSM, so I think you can answer that. The most attractive thing which may keep the volunteers tempted, particularly in OSM.
Okay, yeah. So I'd say for that, I think it's mostly usually the community. So for most of the times when you get to contribute to a project with other people, there's sort of that push to come back to the next one. And then I guess also at times contributing to SM is a bit addictive in such a way that if you get to contribute, you usually have the push to try maybe once in a while. But also I think also how contribution has been structured, where maybe you get to contribute and then your work is validated. I think for a lot of people, when you contribute and your work is validated and it's been shown that your mapping is good, you tend to actually come back because you can actually see that, oh, okay, I did this work and it's been validated and these people are saying it's good and it's going to be used by an organization or someone, or it's going to help people in one or the other. People tend to come back. But I think also another thing is also having diverse activities. So again, with things changing digitally, we have so many ways that people can contribute to OpenStreetMap nowadays. So it's not just the same old mapathons where you come and map a project and that's it. There are so many ways nowadays that people can contribute. I think also there are a lot of communities organizing for things, from webinars to events. So there's that sort of networking bit of it that is useful to a lot of people. So I think that's something that I'm seeing as a push for people to continue contributing to OpenStreetMap. And I think also so many, like even with the tools getting better and making the experience even much better for mapping volunteers, I think that's something that makes it easier for people to keep coming back, or at least for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. May I ask Juan to answer the second part? How can we say that an organization has a good volunteer management system?
I think a good sign for this would be that you have a lot of requests to be part of the team. If people feel comfortable collaborating, volunteering in your organization, they will spread the voice to their friends, to their family, and these people would hear about this, would hear about the organization, and they will also like to, they would want to volunteer too. So the number of requests you have for people wanting to volunteer, it is a good sign. Also, sign for the good health of the volunteering group is that the members, the volunteers are very proactive. They don't have fear to tell the people who run the team how they can improve the way they are doing the tasks. These volunteers feel comfortable in what they are doing and want to improve the way all of us are doing things. So that is a good sign, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan, for your wonderful insights. Quickly share your thoughts on this, Sabrina, also.
Thank you, Lakshmi. So I agree with Juan. If people are coming to you, to your organization, to your group, it means that you have a good reputation and people who have volunteered with you had a good experience. So that's a good sign of the good volunteer management you have in your group. A few elements that I think are important also is, like Juan mentioned before, it's about clarity and communication. So your volunteers have a clear idea of what is expected of them, what resources they have, what decisions they can make, and how they can contribute. So that's very important. And also, if you have a good process where there's also a clear acknowledgement of their work, that also is very rewarding for them. And something that we've also really tried to build up here at Women Plus in Geospatial is to have a better onboarding process, because when new people join, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that are kept in the minds of different people who have volunteered for longer, but it's not directly known to people who have just joined the team. And so it's important to write things down and have and give these resources to the new volunteers so they know, for example, who do I ask if I would like to use the Zoom account, or how do I get this post on your LinkedIn page or on Twitter for this event I'm hosting? And how do I host the event? Where are the logos? Things like this. So having good communication and resources is important. And also, I think we shouldn't expect volunteers to volunteer forever. So a clear idea also of how long this role will last may be helpful for the volunteer themselves to commit and say, okay, I can do this for 2 months, or I can do this for 1 year. And then after that, I can reevaluate. Do I need to, can I still do this? Do I want to change what I do in the team? So that's also important, I think, as a part of this management. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you all of you, dear panelists. It was a wonderful evening, sharing your insights and thoughts. I think now we'll pose for a group photograph. We are inching towards our time schedule. So Arneli, will you take?